Damn, we are now at a point where Transformers in 2023 don't even look like they can actually transform. I mean, I'm gonna take me some selfies. What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're gonna be checking out probably the most unusual Optimus Prime to ever officially exist, that being this Takara Tomy more exclusive Canon and Transformers crossover, Optimus Prime R5. Now, this thing in the UK retails for roughly £135, so extortionate, and there are two different types, so there's an Optimus Prime and a Reflector. You know, in hindsight, Reflector probably would have made sense for this alt mode, but if I'm gonna be forking out that type of money, I'm gonna be going for the big guy Optimus himself. So as we take a look here at the box art, we get some really cool product shots of Prime as well as the Canon. As we come around here to the back, if you collect Masterpiece figures, you'll know exactly what to expect. We get all of the product shots, everything that is included. So let's check this out. I'm actually quite optimistic to see how this thing actually stacks up in hand, because the Canon looks sick and, you know, the Optimus looks a little strange, but at least it's unique. And here we have Optimus Prime as he comes packaged in his Canon camera alt mode, something which I never in a million years would have thought I'd be saying, but here he is, and you know what, Canon are definitely getting that license fee. This thing looks absolutely bonkers. It's truly a robot in disguise. You know, in all honesty, this is probably the best transforming alt mode that I've ever picked up. You would never really be able to tell this thing could transform, and yeah, you know, granted it does cause for some compromises in the robot mode, but you gotta give Takara props. They've done a wicked job. So as we take a look at the details, I mean, to be fair, it literally looks identical to a real Canon camera. You get all of the same details that you would expect. As we come around here to the front, you can see this piece, I believe on a real Canon, does actually flip open. It is static for this one, but look at all of these intricate dials. Some of them do actually move, so this one can be rotated. The actual clicky button that you use to take pictures is spring loaded, so that's pretty cool. And then this one can also rotate, but that is just so sick looking, and I think this has got to be some of the best metallic silver paint I've ever seen on an official product, because it took me quite a while to work out that this wasn't die cast. This is completely painted. The same can be said here for this section, which I believe would be used to attach maybe a flash component on top. So yeah, that's really cool. I love the way this thing looks, and here is what the alt mode looks like from a front-on perspective, so you can see some of the blue from the robot mode shining through, but in all honesty, not too bad at all. I like the texture for where the grip would actually be, so wicked attention to detail. Even here for the underside, you have the battery compartment, as well as this piece, which I think you'd use to attach onto, say, a tripod or something, so wicked looking alt mode, truly awesome. Now, in terms of some of its features, you can take the lens and actually swivel it and remove it, much like you could on a real camera. Now, from an engineering perspective, I thought this was sick, because this specific portion holds the arms and the head of Optimus Prime, and you don't need to detach this for transformation, so really well done in the way they engineered that. And again, you can see some of that wicked looking metallic silver paint. Like I said, you'd literally think it was metal with how it's reflecting, so that's wicked. We can also take the lens cap itself and detach it. These pieces are not spring loaded like they would be on a real Canon, so they are just static. It does just detach, and there we have the camera lens. So again, so realistic looking. This thing truly is just so awesome. Now, in terms of a few size comparisons, here we have Optimus Prime compared alongside the War for Cybertron Siege Reflector in its combined camera mode. So just in terms of a scale, you can see that they're roughly the same in terms of, I'd say, length, but in terms of the actual lens, it's much larger, considerably larger, as you would expect. And in terms of a real life representation, I mean, come on, Takara Tomy, you have knocked it out of the park as far as this camera mode goes. And then for another comparison, here we have him alongside a more traditional version of Optimus Prime, that being the iconic G1 Classic Truck mode. So there we have Earthrise Prime, and again, in terms of scale, it's pretty big. I mean, it would probably be what you'd expect from an average leader class if you were going by the mainline scale standard. Now, as we get stuck into the transformation, like I said, you know, despite this thing having a robot mode, which, yeah, it doesn't look the greatest, I actually think the engineering is pretty intricate on this guy. So to kickstart things off with, you're going to want to take this portion of the camera and just extend this piece here all the way out. It's very stiff, so, you know, you will want to apply quite a bit of pressure. Once you've done that, we can then take this flap, pull it forwards, and then take this section and lift this up. We can now take what will become the legs, slide these pieces down, and then take this, bring it all the way up and over, and then this section will just snap there into place. We can then come here to the legs themselves, split them as you would on a traditional Transformer. We can now come here to the underside and flip out what will become Optimus Prime's feet. So do that on both sides. Once you get them to roughly this degree, we can then take the shins, bring these section forwards, and take the shin pad, collapse that down, and then bring the foot all the way round. So do the same here for this side, extend this knee joint, take the knee pad, and just collapse that down, and then flip out the foot. And that is the lower half of Prime fully transformed. Now what you're going to want to do is come here to this section, detach it just like that, and it is on an extendable hinge joint. So you're basically just going to want to slide this section down, and then this tab is going to peg into that slot. So snap that in and make sure this piece is kind of pushed outwards, because you'll need this to solidify the whole upper torso in just a second. Now what you're going to want to do is take the lens, pull this section here forwards, come here to the underside, and then this piece is actually going to come down, and these are the robot mode arms. So again, a lot of engineering in this thing. We're then going to want to take this piece and essentially just begin detaching it from this section. So detach that like that, and then come here to this side and do the exact same. Once those connections are freed up, we can basically take this entire assembly and lift it here all the way up. What you'll then want to do is just open out these panels on both sides, and here for the arms, these sections here are actually going to extend over the top just like that. We can now take this piece, hinge this upwards just to allow for enough clearance so that we can get into these pieces, and just fold this section here in upon itself and collapse that panel down. Do the exact same here for this side, just collapse all of that down, and then what you're going to want to do is take this hinge joint, bring this here backwards, and these little tabs here and here are going to slide into these slots. So just bring this here down and snap it into place just like that until it clicks in really securely. What we can then do is bring this section down, and this tiny little tab here is going to slide over the top and will also very soft click into place. We can now attach the arms, so there's a tiny slot that this tab here is going to peg into, and then on this side there's a slot that's going to peg into that tab, so snap that in there. Now what we're going to do is basically compress the lens. So for the camera mode, it was extended all the way out. There's actually quite a bit of compression here, so you're just going to want to fold this here in upon itself and then just snap that in there. We can now come to the forearms, lift these sections out, flip out the fists, snap that into place, and do the exact same here for the opposite side. And a step which I always forget to do is to just take this tiny little section which has the really nice headphone and kind of lightning insignia, take it and just compress it down like that, and bang, there is the Canon and Transformers Optimus Prime crossover in his robot mode. And you know what, I'm quite speechless. You know, it's definitely something, I guess it's original, it's unique, it's Optimus Prime like we've never seen before, and I never thought I'd be reviewing an Optimus that could transform into a cannon. What is there really to say about it? The design is interesting. Let's take a look at the head sculpt. So very classic Optimus Prime, you know, one of the few design pieces which have been carried over pretty faithful from that original G1 design. I think he looks cool. You know, he kind of has this GoPro cam smacked in the center of his forehead as if this one in the chest wasn't big enough. I mean, maybe he wants to do a bit of vlogging for the Prime vs Prime channel. I won't be complaining. Very nicely painted mouthpiece. You know, the light piping on this is sick. We get this really nice kind of aqua blue, so that's awesome. We get some nicely cast red arms which have got the Autobot logo, you know, the yellow arrows. Unfortunately not painted like some of the prototype images showed, so it does come across a little flatter in person than how some of those product shots looked, but you know, it's not too bad. And we get the same detail on this side, albeit without the Autobot logo and a nice Canon insignia. Then we have the lens. I mean, I don't know how else they would have got rid of this, because it is quite a big component and there's already quite a lot of compression that goes on for this, because if you remember, it was quite long and it's been considerably shortened down. So that's pretty impressive. I mean, maybe they could have found a way to have removed it and transformed it into maybe some kind of cannon for Optimus to use. I don't know. I mean, it probably would have caused for more design issues than it was perhaps worth. But what I will say, he doesn't really have much of a backpack, which is quite surprising. I mean, even the back of the legs are pretty clean. And talking of, very nicely sculpted as well as painted here for the shin. So yeah, not too bad. Articulation wise, he does have a ball joint here for the head. I mean, that is wicked. Really great range out of that. We get some nice hinge joints, especially out to the sides, bicep rotation, sick elbow joints, which despite being on a single joint can bend way past 90. And much like some of the Takara Masterpiece figures, ball jointed wrists, as well as an articulated index finger and an individually articulated thumb. So that's pretty cool. Sadly, no waist rotation, and I definitely think that's something they could have packed into this guy, because the way it transforms, this is a dead clean cut. You know, had they just added a bit of rotation, that would have been pretty sweet. But we get some nice soft clickety joints here, kicking forwards that far, as well as back to that far, hinge joint out to the side, rotation at the thigh, as well as a 90-degree bend here at the knee, although if you push it past a certain point, the sculpting in detail stops and you're kind of left with this ugly gaping hole. But if you leave it there, that sculpt works pretty cool. And then no ankle pivot at all, merely just kind of a toe tilt due to the way he transforms. So let's talk through some of the accessories. So we do get the camera lens cap, which in this mode doubles as a shield. So we basically just take the handle. It operates in the same way as their masterpiece figures. So we get this big tab which slides into the slot on the inside of the hand. I mean, it looks okay. I guess it's some form of weapon storage, or if you really wanted to, if you didn't want the lens showing, you could also peg it back onto the front. Completely up to you guys. But probably one of the more iconic classic accessories that all Optimus figures should come with is, of course, the Matrix of Leadership. Light our darkest picture. And this is really cool. I mean, it's very classic looking, you know, it has been given a distinctive redesign, but very nicely painted. Unfortunately, not die-cast nor chrome again, like some of the product shots showed, and it is quite strange to see a Matrix which looks this good, feeling a lot lighter than I'm used to, you know, 9 times out of 10. These are always die-cast by Takara, but I guess the budget went into the Canon licensing. Now this, much like the other accessories, you can peg into the hand, so you can actually have him lighting your darkest picture if you wanted to, or in pure Prime fashion, what you can do is take this front lens piece, pull this section forwards, there's kind of this cutout that you're just going to want to push backwards, and the Matrix does seamlessly slide in there. We can just collapse this back, and again, we've got the Matrix embedded within the chest, helping Prime out to light some of those dark images. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, you know, again, very original, very distinct in terms of its design. And the final accessory that we get is a small Canon camera. As if the one in the head and the chest wasn't enough, we get another one, which, you know, you've got to give credit where it's due. Very nicely sculpted, you know, not much paint, there's a tiny bit of silver on it, but gets the job done, I guess, and much like the other weapons, can be easily pegged into the hand. So let's talk through a few comparisons. And by a few, I basically mean just the one. Here we have that classic G1 Earthrise Optimus Prime, really just to give you guys a sense of scale. So I think if this thing were to be put out at mass retail without the whole Canon licensing, it would probably class as a leader. I mean, it's quite a big, hefty, thick piece, and even by, you know, just scale, it's considerably larger than what is a leader class, but of course is more in the Voyager class scale. So yeah, definitely quite an interesting display piece. If you're an Optimus Prime collector, then this thing, without a shadow of a doubt, is definitely going to stick out from the rest, because not only does it have a huge freaking lens smacked into the center of the chest, but it's also a pretty big piece. Now, turning to reverse transformation, to kickstart things off with, you're going to want to take this section, slide it back into place, and it will click in very securely. We can then again take this front lens piece, pull this forwards, and also take this section out, because you'll actually want to kind of get in there and push the Matrix of Leadership out of that chamber. We can then take this panel and just click it back into place, and personally, I'd recommend tabbing that back in just so you know it's not flopping around here, there, and everywhere. I'm first of all going to begin work here on the lower part, so you're going to want to take these shim pieces and just pull these sections here forwards, and then shoot this hinge joint here forwards just like that. We can now take what were originally the feet and just fold those all the way up into those hollow cavities, and of course combine. So snap those pieces in like that. We can now come here to the forearms, take the top piece and lift this section here up, take the hand, fold that section in, and then just snap that into place. Straighten out here at the elbow, do the exact same for the opposite side. So just fold that section in, snap that there into place, and now is where you're going to want to take this kind of backpack piece, disengage it, arch it back, as it will help to essentially free up all of this in just a second. We can now take the arms, detach those from the main body on both sides, which will then allow us to begin kind of freeing all of this up, and you're going to want to give a pretty gentle tug to this piece just to disengage those tabs from this whole back piece. So pull this section here forwards. What I'd then recommend to do would be to try and keep this piece up, just so that we can come around here to the back and then take these sections, pull those forwards, and then fold out the panels that we earlier collapsed in there. So just fold out these pieces just like that. Now what you're going to want to do is flip this section up, and there are two tiny little tabs on the underside of this that is just basically going to slide into there. You know, it just helps to gather a sense of where everything should roughly line up. So come back here to the front. Now is where I'd personally recommend to take this lens and fully extend this piece here all the way out. So what you're going to want to do here is bring these pieces in, and for the arms, these are on their own kind of independent separate hinge joint. So just bring that section in just like that, and then bring this section here around, just to showcase what I did on this side. So again, take this section here, bring this in, bring this section in, fold that piece around, and then bring that piece so it sits flush, just like this. Now what you're going to want to do is make sure that everything is lined up properly. So come around here to this side, and then just fold those joints down. We can now shoot this section here inwards, and it's going to lock into various different tabs. So make sure that this here is pushed in, and then just slide all of these here into their respective slots until that all snaps in. We can now take this, snap that there into place, and then snap the lens over the top just like that. We can now take this piece here, shift this back up, and then this will just snap there into place. Come around here to the side, take this section, flip this piece out, rotate this section outwards, and then collapse this panel in. As now what's going to happen is we're going to bring this here up, this here will then collapse, and then for some finishing touches, we're just going to compress the legs just like that, and bang, there is Optimus Prime back in his Canon camera alt mode. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Canon and Transformers Optimus Prime crossover, I think the best summary I can give this is that it's a collector's piece undoubtedly, and a very expensive one at that. The Canon camera mode looks insane and is no doubt the reason why it's so expensive, because I imagine that license fee was probably astronomical, but from a distance, unless I actually had time to mess around with this, I would believe that this was a real life Canon camera. The detail is wicked, the proportions all appear to be on point, the paintwork is fantastic, and the feature of how they engineered the removable lens like an actual Canon camera, despite this being a Transformer, is just nuts. The transformation isn't too complex nor too simple. It's very similar to, you know, your average Generations leader class, and the robot mode just is what it is. Because it's a crossover, it's never going to look, you know, how you would imagine Optimus Prime to be. It does have a massive, distinctive lens smack bang in the middle of its chest, but I think that's kind of the charm of this figure. I don't think there's ever going to be another Optimus Prime that looks vaguely similar to this, because it's just so out there, and it is just so nuts. I can really only see this appealing to, you know, diehard Optimus Prime completionists, or, you know, those who are a massive fan of Canon camera, or some of these crossovers that Transformers every now and again do. It's very expensive, but in particular where the camera Canon mode is, it's going to make for such a sweet looking display piece. I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? Pick up or pass? Too expensive, or would you say, you know, justified considering the nature of what it is? Let me know down below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.